Sibling Rivalry MMA Podcast. I'll be your host, Nick Ellis. Today, we have our first interview with us is UFC fighter Casey Kenney. Casey, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Just enjoying the day. How about yourself?
Good. Just excited to get this interview going.
Heck
So, 13-1, fighting 135 pounds, coming off a big win over Manny Bermudez. So he weighed in at 140. You guys fought at a catch weight, and he ended up being 20 pounds bigger than you. It was all pretty much a grappling fight. How did that affect the fight?
I've definitely felt it a little bit, but kind of what I knew going into the fight that I felt like my grappling was, superior than his, and he was a good submission specialist, but the overall control, takedowns, everything. I thought his submissions were even, his record and his submission wins speak for itself, but they weren't exactly what everyone was playing it up to be. So I wanted to go out and kind of showcase that I could hang with him, and expected him to be a little bit bigger, but not exactly 20 pounds while we were in there.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty clear when you guys were in there that he was a ton bigger than you, and whose fault it was that the weight had to be changed.
Right.
But yeah, talking about that control you have a wrestling background and a judo background. You're an all-state wrestler in Indiana, which is one of the hardest states to place in. How has that helped you transition from wrestling and judo to MMA?
I mean, it's the foundation for everything, man. There's no tougher sport in the world than wrestling. I think there's that Dan Gable quote. Once you wrestle, everything else in life is easy, and it's true. Even MMA. The wrestling background that I have has really helped me. Build a work ethic and get in those grindy fights, and I need some take somebody down type of thing. Go back to my roots for sure, but wrestling's a staple of it all. If you can't wrestle in MMA nowadays, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and so going on with that, the two guys that you called it after your fight, two legends, Faber and Frankie Edgar, they're both really high level wrestlers too. How would you see that fight playing out? Because I know you said you wanted somebody that would stand and bang with you. Both those guys mix it up really well, as do you. So I think those would be great fights. How do you see that going?
Yeah, those are great fights. Kind of now that it's all said and done, obviously you got to call out a little bit higher up than what you're really wanting. Probably not going to happen with the Uriah or Frankie fight, but if it's ever down, I'm all for it. And I do want a stand up war, and I think Uriah and Frankie, they're obviously good wrestlers, but they engage in the striking enough that I could get that stand up battle that I'm wanting. Borg didn't really a whole lot. Manny engaged a little bit in the stand up, but he still was kind of that coming forward, grabbing a hold of me type of thing at all costs. And, I think Uriah and Frankie are, they're great wrestlers, but I also think that they'll stand up and bang with me a little bit, especially Frankie.
Yeah, and I mean, calling out those bigger names, obviously, like you're probably not going to get those fights right away, but that builds a storyline for down the line.
Right.
But who would you be looking to fight? Because you got to be just outside the top 15 in the rankings. You're only 2-0 in the UFC, but both the wins you have are really big, respectable names. Ray Borg challenged for a belt a couple years ago, and Bermudez was one of the most feared grapplers in the division, and you handled his grappling. So, who would you be looking to fight outside of those two?
I've been talking with my manager and stuff, and I think it is going to be a top 15 guy. So I don't know who, but I know I want a top 15 guy, and I want to fight on November 2nd, Madison Square Garden. That's what fighter doesn't want to go there, the mecca of the big fights that went down for years, especially big boxing fights. But I'm thinking more like Rob Font or Thomas Almeida would be, some guys that stand up and bang, and they're kind of in the lower end of the top 15. But really, I'll take anybody in the top 15. But that's kind of what it's looking like. So somebody in the top 15, and stand to what I said after the fight. I want to stand up and bang for this next one. So those are both good names for that.
Yeah, I think that Thomas Almeida fight, that's one that I hadn't thought about. I really like that. He was a huge name coming up a few years ago before he caught it. Yeah. No, I think that's a great fight. I would definitely want the UFC to make that, especially at MSG. That card's already looking stacked. They got Corey Anderson and Johnny Walker on that. They're talking about Frankie and Aljamain, Colby and Usman. So that'd be a great fight to get on, get a lot of eyes on you.
They just added Gaslam and Till to that card too.
Oh yeah,
Kevin Gaslam and Darren Till. So that's it's another mega card like that. Like I love the UFC 241 feel, the atmosphere. Nate Diaz was in my warm up room. Not till after I fought, but that kind of stuff is that's life, stuff I can take with me for life. And I'm here to be a part of big cards. So the next big one that I know of is going down that night, and that'd be awesome if I could get on it. I'm definitely pushing for it. Hoping to hear back here soon though.
Yeah, and you did fight on one of the biggest cards of the year. You're still somewhat new in the UFC. How was that to be around that atmosphere and be with some of the best fighters ever, like Cormier and Stipe, and I mean Nate Diaz is a huge name, Pettis, a former champ. Like you were in a locker room with all these guys. How was that?
Oh man, it was wild. We all have a fighters meeting. It's just the fighters, and then Dana, like right after the face off. And that was kind of when it set in. Like, damn, I started looking around the room and like who's in here, and not only that, but Dana starts talking about how crazy of a card it's going to be, and it's like, man, I've thought about this, dreamed about this, and here we are. So I just kept thinking, man, I can't get my ass kicked on this card though. This is a big one. Everyone's going to be watching. So it's a good thing I came out on top, but just live in the moment, man. Trying not to be too starstruck while I was doing everything.
Yeah, so I was looking at your record and your background and everything, and this is something I didn't even know. You lost on the Contender Series a couple years back. How was that? Like you had to fight all the way back, win like 4 or 5 fights in a row, and then you finally get back and they call you on a short notice fight for Ray Borg. What was the thought process there? Like, did you ever think about not taking that fight? Such a tough fighter coming off the loss, How was that process?
No, there was no question against not taking the Ray Borg fight, but yeah, the whole Contender Series process was a tough one for me, especially since I came back this second time. I dominated the dude in the first fight, and I didn't get the highlight reel finish that they were looking for. And the second fight, that fight was, I think, went down as the second most exciting fight of the whole Contender Series. They did like a little ranking, and it was a crazy fight against Adam Anslin, and of course I thought I won, and so did Dana. He met us at the cage, and it was like, hey man, you won that fight. So I took the loss on the chin, but it didn't really feel like a loss. So it was a big process dealing with all that. But I knew what I had to do. I could sit around and feel sorry for myself, or I could just go beat a bunch of people up and make them sign me. And that's so when the call came against Ray Borg, it was like, man, I would have really liked maybe a few days notice, a little bit more notice than this, and maybe not against a guy that just fought Mighty Mouse, but it all worked out, and I got a lot of respect for it. So that's the name of the game. You take big risks and get big rewards, type of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's something the UFC loves. They talk about it with all their stars. That's what Dana brags about Conor about, being able to take a fight whenever. So I'm sure, I mean, that should help you with the UFC. Like they should look at that like, well, he helped us in the past. Let's give him a big name like he wants. So hopefully that comes into fruition for you.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's myself, and then obviously, they love that stuff too. So that's just truly me as a fighter. Like I'm down to fight. Let's do it. Whenever, wherever. Taking a little vacation right now just for a few days, but I'm back to training as soon as I get back. I've already been back in the gym, so I'm always ready, man.
So just one last question. You're originally from Indiana. That's kind of why I reached out to you, because I'm from Indiana too. A little bit of Indiana wrestling connection there. What made you move from Indiana out to West?
Well, there may be some more stuff going on in Indiana now, but at the time there wasn't a very big MMA program at all anywhere in Indiana. And I had an aunt and uncle who lived in Tucson, Arizona, and that's kind of where I first moved in with them. And I knew there was a couple of guys out in Tucson, and then also Phoenix. The MMA lab had a big following already, and then my coach now, Chris Carriasso, was out there, and then a couple other guys. So I was like, man, if I could just get out there and give it a shot and see what happens, and, here we are. But it was a big one for me, it was wrestling and everything. So sorry.
No, you're fine. In Indiana, it's really fun a lot.
Yeah. So I've been trying to keep up. They got a good little MMA program, in a couple different cities and stuff. And I'd like to get back and maybe do some training sometime. But what was it, 7 years ago I moved? I think about 7 years ago there wasn't a whole lot for me. So I was like, all right, man, here we go. We're gonna up and move cross country and chase a dream.
Yeah, I mean, out of Indiana, the only guys that really have made it in the UFC are like Chris Lytle and Mitchell that really train out of Indiana. So,
Right.
as far as I know, there's really only one place in here, so it makes sense to move out and try to venture off and get with a better camp. But that is all I have. Thank you for coming on. I hope you get that fight in Madison Square Garden. Casey Kenney should be making a name for himself in the division soon. If you don't know him, start paying attention. We put you on our bets. We threw you in all the parlays. Told everyone to pick you, so could have won some money there.
Yeah, dude, I had a few people talk about it, and I was a good bet. I was a good bet that night. I've been a good bet both times, so keep throwing your money down, man.
Yeah, hopefully they keep making you an underdog, because I'll keep betting on you. But thanks for coming on. First interview we've had on here. Very appreciated, and good luck in the future, man.
Hey, thanks, dude. Anytime, let me know whenever you want me to come back. But it was great, man. Had fun, and I'm sure we'll do it again.
Yep, sounds good.